I've had the pleasure of working on issues of concentrated poverty in place and access to opportunity for years from virtually every sector. And when I joined the administration, the Obama administration in 2009, 2010, I had the distinct honor of working on several of the flagship place-based initiatives, especially as a founding leader of the Partnership for Sustainable Communities, and Raphael gave a nice shout out a little bit earlier in the plenary, and with the Sustainable Communities Initiative in particular. You should know that, if you don't know this, that we took, in the administration, we took lots of inspiration from philanthropy, because we knew that philanthropy had been about supporting place-based, comprehensive, integrated work for years. And in fact, I think there was as much, I hope, of a humble recognition on the part of the federal government that we were actually late to the game. And perhaps that is the case for the public sector in general. I do want to say, though, and you heard this expressed in the last panel, and this may be a ringing refrain, when we do get it right in the public sector, it's actually really great when we hear that from the private and philanthropic sector, and that you guys don't leave us isolated on a limb. Because I think there have been some good developments and good steps, and sometimes we hear that in terms of your own support and work. But that's an aside, maybe a little bit of a ringing refrain. I want to outline, just in my opening comments, a couple of principles that undergirded much of the place-based work. I think across numbers of the initiatives that you've seen on the federal side, we did believe in an all hands on deck, all eyes on the prize kind of philosophy. You saw the incentivizing of cross-sector partnerships that we believed are key for success. We believed that no single actor possessed all of the resources or authority to solve the challenges that we're talking about. We believed in the silo busting that we heard about a lot, and we wanted to begin to model that federally, even as that is a tough thing to do across many of the agencies, but we had the interagency work coming together. We also believed that the full toolbox had to be engaged. So even as we thought about cross-sector partnerships with philanthropy, it was not just about money, but it was about knowledge, it was about research, it was about your convening authority, and we wanted to construct initiatives with you that really played to that full toolbox. We believed in data and evidence, and we put a premium on using data to inform how we understand the problem. We believed that and believe that place becomes an organizing construct for action and targeting, and you saw that in the NRI, Neighborhood Revitalization Initiative, and the Promise Zones Initiative, for SC2, Strong Cities, Strong Communities, and yes, for SCI at the regional scale. We believed, even though it felt oxymoronic for folks, that the federal government could actually be a partner, and that we could work with communities on locally defined challenges and locally defined solutions, but that the federal government needed to partner differently in a problem-solving posture with local communities. And lastly, we believed that equity mattered across all of the initiatives. We kept a keen eye on equity and opportunity and tried as much as possible to remove the false dichotomy of place-based initiatives and people-based initiatives, and we said it's people in place across all of the initiatives, and had some challenges with that. If I have any time left, which I might not.
You're good.
I wanted to outline, just as an organizing frame, what makes partnerships, from my perspective, in these kind of braided relationships, tough. Now, I'm prone to, and if you guys read any of the monograph and what I said, I'm prone to alliteration. And so I'm going to give alliteration. It's not the Jesse Jackson in me. It really is just, sometimes the letters just come to me. So this is my 5 R's of why it makes this, why this work is tough to do. And so I'll start with role. And things we learned about role, what I say, role, confusion, and conflation. I think in this work of getting the sectors to work together, we are used to our own lanes, whether sectoral or otherwise, and the work is messy, and we realized that we either had to tolerate lane collisions and traffic jams, But if trust was not there among the partners when we would get in each other's lane sometimes, you can imagine what happens when those traffic jams happen. Why are you in my lane? I thought that was my lane. I thought you, the federal government, are about X, Y, and Z. So role, confusion, and conflation, and how we deal with that, I think, is really important. Responsibilities is my second R. When you are in the silo-busting work that this work requires, I think you will have, and this is related to role, you'll have folks who talk about that's not my job. And the flip side is, that is my job. Why are you in my job? So turf comes into play, and I think we need a better way of thinking about shared responsibilities and accountabilities. So responsibility is my second R, and I'll probably return to some of these things in comments. Third R, resources. We are all looking at each other, asking where are the resources going to come from. Public sector increasingly looking to philanthropy and vice versa. We believe you guys should fund things. You believe we should fund things. Sometimes they're the exact same things. We need a conversation, a different kind of conversation about the efficient and effective use of resources. And I think across the social impact arena of which we are all a part. Some that are funders, some who think of themselves as about a certain set of enterprises with their resources, but I think we've got to think differently about how we use those resources across all of the sectors. Fourth R, results. I think, and I've heard it across the last conversations of today, what have been our track record with the results that these efforts have yielded? Now, we're getting asked that a lot across all of those initiatives. What is it producing? I think we continue to ask ourselves and ask, hopefully with you, have we and can we be rigorous about the results? Is that even fair in the time frames that we have been about some of these initiatives? When should they really yield thing? And have we, again, thought, much like on the shared responsibilities, have we thought about shared results? And who owns these results beyond the communities themselves? So results is and lastly, I'm there, Sherry, is risk. Now, I originally, this tells you what conversations do to you when you're in the conferences. I originally had 4 R's, and then sometime today I thought about the 5th R, and the 5th R for me was risk. As we partner, how do we think about risk? And who's going to take the risks, particularly as funders? I think we often think that the public sector should take certain kinds of risk, and I'm going to be very curious, Norman, from your own experience, how you think about that.
There's the pressure.
I think sometimes folks in philanthropy want that risk to be assumed in the public sector. I think we need to talk about that. What we do know is there are gaps in terms of resources that need to go out there, and there are risk profiles and risk calculations that we all need to kind of make together. And if no one's moving, because everybody is saying, you take the risk, then I think we need to have a conversation about who's going to take the risk. When we were designing some of these place-based initiatives, one of the things that we thought was going to be incredibly helpful, and again, this is on the Sustainable Communities Initiative, we knew again that philanthropy had already started funding integrated and comprehensive work, and that it was the federal government that was late to the game. So we went about actually issuing an invitation for philanthropy to actually engage in the review of the proposals, right? That seems common sense enough, but then we work in the federal government, and you immediately confront within the federal government, particularly at HUD, why you cannot do that. So that was a series of no's in the desire for a partnership relationship with philanthropy and with external partners, immediate no's for honestly lots of legitimate reasons. Would they play favorites, right? How do we preserve objectivity? all of these sets of questions that we needed to have kind of responses for, we ended up giving responses, and now at HUD, we actually can engage philanthropy in the review. And you should know, in the Sustainable Communities Initiative, foundation reviewers participated with agencies in the selection of those. They brought different voice, different experience to the scoring of those proposals. But that meant in the relationship that we had to confront the barriers, because HUD, as an agency, was closed. Yep. And lots of folks had very legitimate reasons of why it was closed. So part of it is, how do we open up the relationships? If we believe that no one actor actually has all of the resources to solve this, we have to figure out ways in which we actually partner, and we confront, for us, federally, the rules, the regs that prevent us from being open partners. Across any of the place-based initiatives, even non-place-based initiatives, I think there's been an increasing recognition federally, whether we've called it collective impact or not, that it's really important to think in these more comprehensive, integrated ways, kind of one tables of conversation. How do we look at results and data sets together? What does our learning and discovery process look like across numbers of sectors? And in particular, where's the backbone organization? And we are having federally, we just in fact had a session among all of the place-based initiatives where we ended up having a conversation about how our work is about collective impact. One of the outgrowths of it has been, and it seems very, very small, but you can imagine what this would feel like if you were to organize this federally. There was a recognition that, again, if place is an organizing construct, how often is it that the federal government descends upon place and visits a neighborhood across numbers of different investment streams? What would it be like if we actually organized ourselves to come together, to visit a community together, to have a learning and discovery process across the range of policies together, which would enable us, when we have perhaps housing and health together, to understand that a housing investment has a health consequence, and to hear that from community, but hear it in a way that, again, the federal government is coming as a federal family, not as singular siloed institutions in a community. And it's one refrain that we often hear from communities is, can you, federal government or government writ large, can you get your act together better, so that if we are collectively about these shared results together, there's a way of working that would enable us to actually get about the business of shared results.